Hello and welcome to Dice Punks, a tabletop role-playing podcast where we focus on playing full campaigns in less well-known systems. This week, in episode 42, what will our walking weapons of mass destruction find at the other end of the causeway they've created? Hello and welcome. I'm Adam, your friendly neighborhood game master, and joining me are...
Hello, I'm Drew, and I'll be playing Leorian Guitar, Viscount of Tempo, one of the aforementioned weapons of mass destruction. Feeling good.
Hi friends, I'm Robin, and I'll be playing the rebellious rescuers Mavia, Furious Queen of Forceful Darkness, and Lissa, the Forge's Baron.
I'm Dez, and I will be playing Rumnet, Duke of Murder, and weapons builder, it seems.
I do so enjoy your character introductions every episode. Thank you. Let's see about some character stat growth if there is any.
Oh, there
we'll
is.
recap the previous episode. And of course, first off, before we get to anything else, we need Romnet's bonus XP roll.
That is para 2s, para 4s, para 10s.
Okay.
Ooh, super shiny.
Yeah, I'm going to go with this is a point that is a sort of striated semi-precious stone carved in the shape of a point.
I love it.
Nice.
Yes.
And that is a 10th mortal experience for me, which means that I'm going to spend all of it
Ooh.
to get Sense 5.
So grateful that you have sense.
One of us has
Yeah,
to.
that gives you a very decent pool in even stuff that you are untrained in, and really impressive pools in Eerie and Empathy. So, yeah, there are certain things for which I think the party is going to end up more or less reliant on you,
And
should they come
I am
up.
further going to spend my Divine XP that we got last time. I can't remember whether you mentioned that on air.
I don't remember either, so let's go ahead and say, yeah, you guys got a Divine XP last time, whether it was on air or not.
And
Right.
I am going to up my Domain of Sacrifice to 2.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do the same, but not actually,
Mm.
with darkness to 3.
All right.
Remind me how much it costs to up domain from 2 to 3, for example.
Primary is 3.
Primary domain is 3.
Secondary is 1.
Okay. I have no secondary. I'm not fancy like, so I will also take my domain to 3 with my Divine XP.
All right.
I was going to do something sensical as well, but Des, if you've got us covered with sense.
My minimum pool, absent, penalty dice, is 5. For skills I have 0 in.
Mm-hmm.
There
Yeah, just fine
are 2 that I have pools of 8 in, and 1 that's 5 plus a master die.
Okay, we might be covered as far as that goes.
As long as
Regarding-
Romnet's around.
That's true, as long as Romnet's around. That was more foreboding stuff there. On the assumption that we're all going to be around for a while, let me actually put some points into command. Specifically, let me take my Inspire and my Intimidate both from 2 to 3.
Okay. So that'll be a total of 6 mortal XP to add 1 each to Inspire and to Intimidate, making the pools for both of those 5. Excellent.
Yeah, despite being the head of a church that formed around me, my command is 1.
Yeah, I was thinking what the party might need, and that seemed more what it is. I do, for the record, have good sense stuff. I have a master die in hearing, which so far has never come up, but we'll see.
disagree. It came up when you were in the Bane house.
You are quite right. You are quite right. Okay, so it saved my bacon, actually. All right, so I withdraw my statement. I remembered other things about that house, but yes, good point.
I'm shocked I remembered that role in particular, frankly.
It was a damn fine scene, if I may. Okay, good.
All right. Well, if that's all of our XP wrangling for this episode, then I believe it is about time that Leorian gave us a recap of last time.
Well, it was an early afternoon in the streets of Therit. Imbi and Philia had returned to the inn, and we had set about deciding how to vex the deep. Lissa prayed to Toheel, who drew her into somewhere and taught her how to steal power from, powers, and from gods, by crushing some nettles. That sounds like a simple matter, but you ever try finding nettles in an unfamiliar city? We managed. Philia removed herself from our plotting, and Imbi was mired in despair, but nonetheless, Lissa, Romnet, and I managed to nettle Cirtha and to send some of that power to Toheel. And then we took on the deep directly, raising up the prison in which my friend's friend, Apatia, is being held. And this caused a tsunami. In Therit, a few ships ran aground in the harbor, but no worse. This was because we had redirected the wave to Cirtha, so in Cirtha, well, that remains to be seen. But the prison, we do think we can see. And so, on to save a friend and ruin a god's day, for neither the first time nor, I hope, the last.
Marvelous. And succinct. I will only add that nettling Cirtha involved a simultaneous solar and lunar eclipse and a Mott-related glyph in the sky.
I should mention, yeah, we did. We were instructed to warn the locals, which we did via Romnet. We warned Creus's Tier. Can't really speak to the mood in the rest of the world over the whole sky going weird thing.
Indeed. Just, in case it comes up. So
that does seem like the kind of thing Leorian would neglect to mention. So,
it does, yeah. Just wanted our listeners to know, just in case. Presumably they heard the last episode, but have it fresh in their minds, I suppose.
For sure.
We can begin right there. We had ended off last time. There is a causeway of the mud and sand of the ocean floor that has raised up out of the depths, coming all the way to the edge of the harbor, right in front of where your party is positioned, a little ways up the hill, honestly. So really good precision there. It's quite narrow. Maybe two of you could walk side by side on it, but all three of you abreast, probably not. Not without having to navigate whatever goes on the sides of it there at the very least and getting your feet wet. And at this point, a little time has passed. I'm going to call it mid-afternoon. But, honestly, running around to find nettles and then doing a few miracles took a surprisingly short amount of time, all told. And I'm going to rule, too, we sort of maybe lost sight of it a little bit in all of the hubbub, but, the sky is still wacky. These were globe-spanning miracles. They did not stop right as your attention shifted away from them. The height of the dual eclipse has passed because, you have shifted your miraculous energies elsewhere, but it will be a little while in wearing off, and so there is still this sort of reddish orange light illuminating the middle of the afternoon throughout, at the very least, the few adjacent time zones. And the eye glyph that I do not recall if it was Lissa or Mavia put in the sky.
I believe Mavia.
Mavia.
Yeah, the eye glyph that Mavia put in the sky is no longer in evidence, but it's still real eclipse apocalypse feeling out here. And that's where we pick up.
Yes.
Eclipse ellipse.
Eclipse is my
I
drag
think
name.
is my favorite.
I hate it, but it's so good.
It sounds like a Jinx-esque Pokemon.
A little
does.
bit.
Oh no! Oh no! No! Don't let Jinx evolve. Don't do that.
And Jinx is evolving into
Beep, 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 beep,
Eclipse.
beep. I was going to say, Des, yours was empirically better. Mine was dumb enough to be amusing, I think.
Yes, but which of these wins on the internet?
I guess we'll find out if people listen to this.
Apocalypse could also be a YouTube channel that edits movies that are otherwise prosaic to look like the end of the world is occurring.
That's fantastic. I'd watch that.
Hold on, I'm gonna make a quick note here.
So
Okay,
dibs on that idea.
So I think it occurs to me that we probably should let the world know that the world is not ending as best we can. That thing we can do where we are in somebody else who has one who's very far away. We should probably let them know that this, and I gesture at the sky, is not dangerous to those down here.
I don't actually know where my other one is.
Mine are in Boar or just outside Fermata.
Hey, Adam.
Well then.
Mm-hmm.
Where is my brother?
I know of one way to find out.
I should probably check in on him.
If you wish to, you step back, kind of from any passing traffic, and will yourself into your brother's presence. Perhaps unsurprisingly, he is seated behind a camp table within sort of the central tent of the camp of the House of the Discerning Patron. He is looking at a calendar and some ledgers, and does not seem to notice your presence in his mind right away.
First things first, please don't faint.
He stiffens. You feel it because you're currently occupying him. And he... it's somewhere between a whisper and a hiss, says, Rumnet? Am I
Hi.
hearing things? It's... how...
Simplest explanation is magic. Longer explanation is a lot longer.
Yes, of course. Magic.
Don't worry, the eclipse was not scheduled.
I beg your pardon?
I mean, it wasn't going to happen absent intervention, let's put it that way.
Well, yes, we have calendars. We know that. Are you saying you know something about it? And
yeah.
It's I'm sorry. How are no, it's been at least a decade. How are you? Why have you decided to contact me about an eclipse? And I'm glad you're alive, I suppose.
I've been out of touch because I've been literally out of the world for some time.
Okay.
Just keep rolling with magic. Smile and nod as necessary.
Just like old times.
Yes, but weirder.
That is not reassuring.
If only you knew, my dear brother. In any event, I knew about the eclipse because I'm one of the parties that helped to cause it.
No, carry on.
There's a war, I suppose. We're trying to fucking end it. It's stupid. But one of our friends was captured and being punished at the very bottom of the fucking ocean, so we had to do something about that. Are you near water at the moment? Like ocean?
Not especially. Oh.
What happens when you raise a football? That's not a word that we know. What happens when you raise a rostrum from the bottom of the ocean to the very top of it?
Oh, I see. Yes, no, we're a fair ways inland and have high ground. I suppose, thank you for the warning. We were worried, but I told everyone there wasn't much we could do about it, and nothing seemed to be going wrong in our immediate vicinity, and set them to their camp tasks. We should be in...
Where are you?
Ish. A little south of the Naaman headland. And we'll be back in that city in the next few days. Probably slower now that there's been this delay, but nothing to worry about too much.
Okay. How have you been?
I suppose that the shortest answer is that I've been keeping busy. The House of the Discerning Patron has seen some relatively tough times lately, but we're holding together, if only barely. We've lost some folks,
yes,
a variety of ways, but we're heading to Nema now to recuperate some, let everybody see their families and attend to their affairs, and then we'll try to reorganize some and set out once again when the season hits.
Is there anything that you'd like to pass along to Leorian?
What to... I suppose all I, and he emphasizes the personal pronoun there very strongly, all I wish to pass along is that his lute playing, and especially his lute, are missed. And if he wishes to come back, then he'll have apologies to make, but we'd be glad to have him. Are you saying you are acquainted with Leorian?
Yes, he is one of my traveling companions and compatriots in arms, I suppose. His vanishing was not directly his choice. He was elevated.
I will do my best not to ask.
Again, magic, and if at some point you would like a better or more thorough explanation, we can do this. You'll probably want alcohol.
Very well. Well, I will tell you what, this has been a thing, and I did rather hope that our reunion, should it happen, would be more personal than this strange and invasive magic, but all the same, it is good to know you're still alive.
Likewise.
And should you find yourself in Nema in the next several months, chances are reasonably good that I'll be around and we should get a drink together. You can explain then. In the meantime, I suppose, wish Leorian my best, and you can generalize it to the troop, but he won't believe you, I don't think. And take care of yourself if you're at war.
I will do my very best to do so.
And I suppose if you can do this, let me know if there's anything that I can do from my position, and otherwise,
mostly keep safe,
hope
please.
Well, I always do my best. I hope I'll actually see you in the flesh soon, and if there's any way to warn me before you do this, I would really appreciate it. This is extremely uncanny.
I will do my very best to keep myself safe and give you warning and make sure that the areas you are in are kept safe as well.
I suppose I can ask for a little more under what sound like harrowing circumstances. Out of the world. I do wish I understand what that meant, but I suppose it can wait.
Indeed.
Fare you well, then, brother,
And
I
you.
suppose. My thanks. He turns back to his ledgers.
And I withdraw.
Very well. So, while that was going on, what were our other two Nobilis getting up to?
I think my first jupe probably is into probably Timos Calavan, because he already knows what's going on. That saves me having to explain. And it would be on the order of popping in and hoping to find him alone so I can say the world is not ending and withdraw immediately. Dosk has taught me that this is an option.
Sure.
Such a dramatic bitch.
You zoop in to find him mid-swallow of fairly fine wine in a sitting room with his father, Tyrios Calavan, and a variety of people you do not recognize, totaling to about 6, including him. They are all in the process of, drinking. You think you came in on the tail end of like a toast. And upon your arrival, Timos kind of sputters and coughs a little bit, and then sort of taps his chest and looks around wildly for a second and says, if you'll excuse me, and steps out of the room, hustling a little ways down the carpeted hallway of the Calavan Manor, and then pressing himself against a wall in an alcove and not saying anything and just barely stopping shy of hyperventilating.
I apologize sincerely for my timing, my lord. The news is somewhat timely, however. I wish, first and foremost, if you've seen the sky, and how could one not, to let you know that the end is not upon us. Rather, a new beginning of sorts.
Oh, well, lovely to know that wasn't a strange dream last time, I suppose, lad. We had just finished having a conversation. Fortunately, while the eclipse was alarming, the symbol of the obsidian god appearing over it helped to calm spirits a bit, as, well, the obsidian god is well respected in these parts nowadays. What exactly is going on?
Well, I trust you with this knowledge, of course, my lord, and not to alarm others with it. The gods are making a sort of war. However, I hasten to point out, it seems as though a resolution is in sight. The obsidian god means no harm, not only to their followers, but to any of humankind, so far as I am aware. And the situation is well in hand.
Well, I suppose that's reassuring, but if I am not allowed to share it around, then I suppose I shall have to come up with other reassurances. At the very least, my Lord Father will appreciate the vague placation. It's getting rather too old for these kinds of shocks, but the end of the world not being upon us is reassuring at any rate. How exactly are we speaking right now, if you don't mind my asking?
I believe by sheer force of you liking me.
It's odd to be able to feel the person you are talking to blush. And he sort of cradles his face in his hand and says, yes, well, I've always been rather prone to irrational behavior, I suppose. He can't quite keep the fondness out of his voice. Well, lad, things seem to have gotten rather strange rather rapidly, but I do hope you'll keep well, and for all the strangeness of it, I do appreciate your efforts to inform me. If I could perhaps get back to my Lord Father now, though.
By all means, and thank you, and have fine after meal. Yeah, thank you, and I disappear.
Very well. Now, the way that you transitioned into that implied that you were going to drop in on other anchors as well.
I think so. Does that take me to Romnet pulling back to the present place as well?
Mine was
I'm gonna
rather
say-
lengthier, so
Yeah, your
Okay.
conversation was shorter, so I think you could probably do another one before you're...
Okay, I am
Consulting.
I am putting off speaking to Keelio, even without knowing whether or not I have a reason to do so. We said it's like early afternoon; it's not evening yet, or like late afternoon.
Mid-afternoon.
Yeah, mid-afternoon. Okay, so I feel about for who it is I can reach out to, and immediately I notice my younger sister,
Mhm.
so I zoop her way.
All right. You zoop into Firagi. Mid-aria. She is performing in a venue you recognize, the Tides Repast in Nema. And as you sort of become aware of her senses, she's holding not the highest note in the aria that you think she's likely to be performing at this venue at this time of year and day. But she immediately, her voice cracks. She recovers professionally, finishes out that little bit, and signals to the stage manager that she needs to, retreat for a moment. There is a smattering of applause and a couple of mutters as she retreats backstage. It's a very simple, very spare space, but relatively removed from the rest of the space. She sort of looks around, and you can feel her sort of like, touching her face, neck, and arms, trying to figure out what exactly happened.
I am mortified, and I apologize. And you should go back out there when we're done here and blame me. Though you'll get a laugh, especially if Paylog is around. She'll find that very funny. It's Leorian. Hello.
There is a beat in which she is totally still and silent, and then she inhales deeply and says forcefully but quietly, "Leorian, how? This is just like you."
I make a perhaps audible attempt not to be flattered by that. Well, the where is complicated. The how more complicated, actually. The main reason I wish to speak to you urgently. I mean, I wish to speak to you for lots of reasons. I hope you've been well. The sky has changed. This is nothing to be concerned about. I wanted you to know that. You're by the sea. The sea is perhaps... there's a war of gods, you see. I'm a demigod now, and this is too much.
Yes, it is. Let's say I believe any of that. I've been in here for most of the day. What exactly is going on with the sky and the sea? How are you talking to me? Where are you? What have you been up to? Nobody knows where you are.
Yes, well, see, I was drawn into a bit of an operation to make right the very cosmos. That's how I came to be a demigod, incidentally, or I suppose not so incidentally, and it seems that those to whom I'm closest, I can simply speak to at a moment's notice, to, or I suppose through. And my work, such as it is, involves bringing to an end this tiresome war of gods in which the deep is a combatant. So, should things change with the sea, perhaps be ready to leave the Tides Repast behind.
There's a beat, and she says, "You would get yourself involved in a war, and I just... Or is this a story you're writing, or... Wait a second, did you say demigod?"
I did, of tempo, specifically, if you can believe it.
For gods above and below.
Not of pitch, which make it more embarrassing that I just caused you to. I'm sorry again about that.
I hope you're telling the truth, because if you were lying, this is way more embarrassing than it otherwise would be. Look.
I'm not sure I've ever been this good a liar, honestly. But I've always been about this good at getting myself into trouble, so...
Leorin, I'll try to let people know as they ask what's going on. I assume that's why you contacted me. Look, if you were actually the demigod of tempo, we really could use you at home. But it does sound like there are things that you need to do. I would just ask that you try not to, let's say, pop in after about noon. I tend to be around people from that time of day until I go to bed. And,
of course,
this is extremely jarring.
Your performances are legitimate in a way that mine are not. It not being the evening and I being not quite so legitimate, I didn't think. I'm sorry. I truly am. And I mean it that you'll get a laugh if you blame me. And if you could just at some point let Auntie Haraj know that the world is not ending, that would be appreciated.
Yes. I mean, I'll try. Gods know how I'm going to convince anyone of anything like this, but I'm sure that Belog is about to thrash me, so I should go, and I guess you should get back to whatever demigod nonsense you've got going on, and I swear to everything, above, below, and to the side, that if you are pulling a prank on me, I will pull out your spine.
That seems very fair. Thank you.
I like her.
All right, I'm going to drink some water and try to finish my performance, so if we're done here...
Can you perform ghost miracles on someone while zooping into them?
You can.
Yeah.
I give her perfect tempo. She will lock into the next thing that she sings in a way that seems not robotic, not that we would even have that touch point,
sure.
but unnaturally correct, right in a way that is superhuman.
There's a beat. She doesn't seem to notice the miraculous effect that you're putting on her, but she says, "Please be careful, big brother. I'm furious with you, but I don't want anything to happen to you. Unless, of course, it's something that I do to you."
Again, very fair.
Yes.
Best of luck with that high E. Farewell.
I don't need luck. You zoop out in the middle of the word need. All right. About that time, both Romnet and Leorian are returning. I guess, Robin, were you still Mavia when we left off?
Yes.
All right. So, have you been getting up to anything in particular while they've been doing this?
Probably staring down the length of the walkway with the sight to see if I can see... to see any hidden threats that might be lurking under the surface, because I imagine we won't have a free passage into the sea prison.
So there are no like Octoritoses or anything, and mostly what you see are frozen tutelary spirits. So you have the gnomes of the earth and the causeway and the... I've never been sure how to say this word. Undine, Undine. I'm not sure.
I think it is either Undine or Undine. I've always thought of it as Undine, but it's probably likelier to be Undine.
I think Rosicrucianism was originally a German language thing, so my typical thing has been to default to Undina, but that sounds weird in English, so I'm going to go with Undine.
Sounds good.
For our
any linguists in the audience, please let us know.
Sure. The Undines in the water next to the causeway, all those gnomes and Undines are frozen in place as though time has stopped for them. The ones even 5 feet out from the causeway seem fine, normal. They are moving and looking like water. You can't detect easily anything sort of lurking within your field of vision here. Even with the sight, you're sort of limited by, the resolution with which you can perceive things going out to a distance. And the overall sense that you get here is that there's nothing miraculous waiting for you in the first stretch of this causeway, at least, but you're not able to vet the whole thing for threats, and honestly, anything mundane, fleshy, and mortal could be waiting under the first 10 feet of water.
Mm-hmm. I take an opportunity to extend my gratitude to Ventis and Toheel for their excellent work.
You don't establish full real-time contact with them, but you do manage to sort of send your feeling of gratitude along.
A letter through the ether.
And you sort of get an affirmation back. You've managed to look at the sort of near-term, near-field prognosis for the causeway, send your gratitude. Leori and Romnet, you have come back from visiting your various anchors. If there's any other visits we want to do, now would be a good time. Otherwise, what do we get up to next?
2 quick things.
Mm-hmm.
Geographically, Varric is not in any harm's way from the tidal wave, right? Kind of barriered by the Great Sump, or? Yeah,
there might be a sort of tidal effect, in the sense of like the water level might rise a little bit, but that Rymulus is there to sort of keep things under control, and also they're far enough into the Great Sump and the Cyan Mirror that it's not going to come with any force, right? It's going to be very diffuse by the time it gets to them.
Okay. And can I also do a divination to see if there's any fury that is planning to attack specifically us?
So your question to your estate, I would assume, I guess, that this is a lesser divination? You can actually get major divinations for free.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah,
so you
I was
going to
do the free greater divination.
Perfectly fair. If you're asking, the question would be, does any fury target you particularly? I would say that the answer you get back is that all detectable furies are either targeted elsewhere or very diffuse currently.
Excellent. Okay, that's all.
Right, so having reassembled from your various out-of-body jaunts and or scouting missions abroad, it's not exactly simultaneous, but effectively for game time, all of this sort of wraps up in, the same basic span of time. What are our next steps?
We should make haste.
Probably.
I suppose we should at that. I've learned that people are, in general, fairly amenable to things going strange. They don't assume the world is ending, they just assume it's continuing, which indeed it is.
There's a little bit of a selection bias there, but that is what your data show. So
Phaedric sends his regards and expects an apology at some point.
And he's owed one. Phaedra, how do you know? We should make haste so you can explain this on the way, but how do you know?
He's my big brother.
Phaedric?
I just start stalking towards the path.
I'm kind of surprised that we are not picked up ragdoll style by a pair of tentacles.
Bodily autonomy, what have you.
I mean,
sure,
fair, reasonable, and laudable.
Octoritas's,
and in Mavia's current configuration, it's easier for you to manifest the tendrils strongly when it is already at least twilight, because you have darkness in there. Not that you couldn't do it, but that, in terms of unconscious summoning of them. Anyway, you start stalking towards the causeway. Presumably
the
this
stalking
conversation...
off is certainly enough to get me to follow as we're talking.
Yeah, presumably this conversation kind of maybe continues as you go.
Sure.
You can pick up where you left off if you'd like, or we can imply the rest of it, whatever you prefer.
Yeah. No, I think my question, which that conversation didn't cover, was so Phaedric, is he the prophet of something as well that
No, he's my brother.
that I'm not aware of?
Prophecy
Sure.
runs in the family.
That would be so terrible. Imagine parenting that nonsense.
Oh, God.
I have to drop that in the Discord for myself, just so I can remember it for like if I want to write something later on.
It's like a very high concept 90s sitcom.
Actually, it's probably not that far removed in that sense from, I know it wasn't a sitcom, but Seventh Heaven.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yeah.
Totally.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, I suppose you've, your time in Fermata was, not centuries. That's, you yourself weren't sure, I believe. So that's knowledge.
Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad he's well. And if I'm perfectly honest, this saves me having to do something about the connection I feel with Keelio right for the moment. So everybody wins.
I will just raise an eyebrow.
Ramat's very good at that.
I decline to explain any further at the moment.
And it is about at that moment that you come up to the edge of the harbor wall. You're sort of maneuvering between stranded ships and the people who are seeing to them, including some of the abyssal hulks that were helping on the ships earlier, are now helping to get them back in the water. They ignore you.
Probably for the best.
But as you walk down the stairs, coming right up to the seawall on the harbor, is this causeway. It seems close to the shore to be made out of very wet, sticky mud. And as you move further out, it gets sandier and sandier. You cannot from here see its terminus. It goes well beyond the horizon.
Leorian, do you have enough miraculous energy to spare to expedite this process?
I think I could make that happen. I do perform a lesser creation of tempo, so I'm going to spend one domain miracle point to make that happen, to not just expedite the perception of the trip along the causeway, but make it actually happen more quickly, since we're not sure if time is limited.
Perfect and wonderful.
Just like his timing.
Of course, the experience of Leorian's miracle is that you all are walking at a normal pace, and honestly, if you pay attention to what you're passing in terms of the ocean, or if you look back at Theret, it all looks normal when you look at it, but out of the corner of your eye, or when you're not looking at all, it recedes very quickly. There is a small knot of people at the head of the causeway watching you depart, but no one seems to dare step on it themselves, at least until it fades from your view. You can only hope nobody decides to try it after you're out of range of seeing it. Now, I don't have a specific, to-scale map to pull up of this, but this causeway is long.
Like bridge over Lake Superior long?
Possibly longer, actually. Depending on which way you bridged Lake Superior, I suppose. I'll tell myself a little bit in a way that I can edit out if I need to. I grew up in the vicinity of the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway in Louisiana, which at the time was the longest bridge in the world at 24.6 miles. I believe there is a longer bridge somewhere in China now. But that still makes it, as far as I'm aware, the second longest bridge in the world, and you are well beyond that getting to Apatia.
Well,
where you hope she will be. So even with this tempo miracle helping you out, you will not get there by the end of the day. Camping on the causeway is going to be difficult. It is only wide enough for two people to walk shoulder to shoulder, and even then they have to be pretty comfortable with each other. So how do you plan to handle that? And secondarily, is there anything you want to do or say or talk about during this time of your travel?
I can provide furious energy so that we do not have to camp in the middle of the ocean. Seems like a bad idea.
There are some risks involved.
A few, here and there.
I'm going to assume I learned the rest of what Romnet was willing to tell from his conversation as we're walking. Yeah.
I let on that I mentioned that you were involved in a war effort and that your departure from the troop had not been, strictly speaking, voluntary.
And they're headed to Nema, so that means that they can corroborate the story I told to my sister, and all concerned will be a little less inclined to think that they or we are insane.
I mean,
or in our case,
given that it's our siblings, hard to say.
Yeah, it's true. That's a good point. Should we be concerned that the troop is headed toward the sea?
I think the time for tsunami has likely passed.
I guess I meant in a more general sense.
I don't know that the sea is so likely to attack pell-mell as it would be to attack us specifically.
Sure.
It not being known that these people are our siblings, absent some manner of reasonably specific miracle or inquiry. Note to self, don't piss off the Nobilis of family.
I mean, of course, they would target us directly. I appreciate that your mind always works through the worst things that could happen and how they would happen.
It's a hazard.
And a boon.
So, Leorian, you are aware of you are more precisely aware, but not actually all that precisely aware of how far you have traveled by nightfall.
He's got perfect timing, not perfect geography.
Well, and it's also your miracle who's that's speeding you up. So in an afternoon and an evening, it wouldn't be unreasonable for 3 people walking with minimal luggage to travel 15 miles. You are pretty sure that your party has made it almost 60.
Nice.
This also still means that you are, according to Mavia's information, not that close to where you think that a patient is.
You could ask your boss to in nothing the
That
distance.
said, well, that is an option. I was also going to say that Mavia, you use a lesser creation of fury to keep everybody going.
Mm-hmm.
And it works, assuming that you get permission, which I don't imagine will be withheld. So that you can get through Octoritas's without any sort of penetration. It's not that hard for you guys to go through the night and into the morning. And this does get you probably another 180 miles, which puts you...
When the offer was made, I enthusiastically said, "Oh, so it's like soul coffee."
Oh,
brilliant.
I may use that term from now on.
By all means.
So, in any case, walking through the night, you get, about another 180 miles. And you feel like with that total of about 240 miles that you are more than halfway there, but only just.
Woof.
How's our aspect miracle pool going?
We use these less often, so let me look this up. So at level 0, we're just at peak performance. So we're just walking quite fast.
I think Des and I are at 1.
Yes.
Mavia is, yes. So, level 3 is improbable feats, and level 4 is very improbable feats. Level 5 is impossible for humans.
I mean...
Also, I should point out that, Leorian, you may have to re-up your tempo miracle basically when the sun comes up, because it was a lesser creation. It lasts a while, but it doesn't last forever.
Are those free for you?
They are if I use the drum. I didn't use the drum this time because something told me I couldn't, but then it occurs to me that I could because I still owe time from when I slowed the tides down.
You do.
So I ask if I can take you both arm in arm,
Mm-hmm.
and then I start playing the drum, and because I have to give the time back, I begin walking and I presume pulling them faster. You probably have to help me not fall off the causeway because I have limited control as I'm going this fast.
Indeed. It's awkward to play the drum with your arms looped around other people's elbows, but it is an efficient solution. Since you slowed down the tides, you repay it by speeding up your travel. And
I mentioned that when this is done, I could keep doing it, but then I'll need to give that back, which, cross that bridge, such
Burn
as
that
it is
bridge
when
when we
get
get there.
Actually,
Yeah, like the man said.
Leorian, if you can give me, let's say, a sense direction for 6 dice, that will actually be your best indication of when you have repaid the time that you borrowed.
That is a pair of 4s.
Okay. You feel like you don't overshoot it by much. And by your best estimate, you have gone a fair way. Though you aren't entirely sure how far you need to go, Mavia can fill you in by, having the point that was raised from the sea in mind. And yeah, you're 3/4 of the way there. You've got a little less than a couple 100 miles to go.
When I'm taking time rather than giving it back, I don't have to make physical contact with them anymore because anybody who can hear the drum can be affected. We continue to go fast as my hand in a mortal way starts to feel tired, I imagine, but that hardly matters.
Hardly. You play the drum to affect time for, let's say, another afternoon or so, covering ground at a remarkable pace for foot travel. I'm also going to give us one more opportunity to nominate any particular thing that conversation takes place about before we get there.
I guess I if I haven't already done this, I mention what Phaedric was talking about with the loot. I explained to Romned and to maybe if she happens to be listening that probably the loot is the most famous member of my family. And, not everyone was thrilled when I took it with me.
I will not even hide how hungry I am for stories of my brother.
Aww.
Well, I mean, he kept us together past when that should have been possible. It certainly wasn't me doing it. I tell a story of how once Aldry and I were fighting over some extremely minor question of art, and Phaedric simply said, "What matters is the look on the face of the person who watches. They won't even know what it is we argued about today. They'll only know how we made them feel, and that is what you should always have in mind." And that stuck with me. I mean, those are words to live by, right? I mean, we worry so much about the how that it's easy to forget why we do anything we do. But he never forgot that, even as he was enmeshed in the day-to-day of how.
He is always focused on details, but somehow is also good at the larger picture.
I don't know how he does it. If I focus on the details, then I become completely lost in them. But it's always in service of the result. Almost to a fault, I mean, some would say, but to me, it seems like there are those people who are taskmasters who focus on one specific thing and drill it forever because they seek perfection. He seeks something more important than perfection, which is correctness. And he got us there far more often than not, often despite ourselves. I know he took it hard when a series of tragedies took place, but he remained, I don't know, the glue, the rock, even when I couldn't be.
That sounds right. I'm glad that he was there for you.
I'm proud and often a bit intimidated to know him.
You both sound fortunate.
Sometimes when you lose someone, one of the things it does is make you appreciate the people you've still got.
Mm-hmm.
Could I get all three of you to roll a sense plus sight?
Two dice. Woo!
4. This could be worse.
Yeah, sure.
The sad thing is that I rolled a 1, and then the second dice landed on 1, bumped the first dice, and went to 3, so no matches.
Oh, come on, man.
Tragedy.
What?
It was right in front of me.
Come on,
pair of
lady,
nines.
by which I mean luck. Pair of 5s over here.
Pair of nines, pair of fives. At various points during this last leg of your journey, the two of you think you kind of see something out of the corner of your eye, but when you turn to look at it, there isn't really anything there. The suspicion that raises in your mind is that there might be something trailing you in the water to either side of the causeway, but you can't catch sight of it.
Thrilling. I will look into the water with a level of free aspect miracle.
All right. So for you, that's a level 1 aspect miracle, which is, for our listeners, a high-level human performance here.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make heads or tails of the shape that you see in the water, but it's definitely well larger than a human form. And it's trailing you to either side back about 50 feet or so. Fairly deep, just enough that you can perceive it.
I will mention this to Lissa, to Mavia, rather.
Thank you.
To inquire of the specifics of its fury.
And I do just that.
None.
Does it have fury?
Seems incapable of it.
So it's mortal then.
You can sense mortal things' fury, though, can't you?
Mm-hmm. I relay this information to the rest of the group that doesn't appear to have any fury, doesn't seem capable of it.
Well.
And I imagine I didn't see an Octor toss in the sight.
Of course not. No. Glad you asked, but no.
I float the idea of doing a lesser creation of darkness to make it unable to see.
Okay.
Seems a fine idea to me.
Yeah.
Lesser creation of darkness seems to hide you. It's unclear, since the thing doesn't really show up in brightness in the sight, whether it's actually, or they, since they're on either side, actually...
Oh, good. That means it's not one thing, just very wide under the causeway.
Yeah, I imagine it was too, because I think the causeway is connected to the ocean floor at this point.
Indeed, it is. Yes, it was
Okay.
raised from the bottom.
Excellent.
And that has been relatively clear since the inception, but I maybe not have made it clear in the way that I've described it.
I was picturing something smashing the underside of what we were walking on, which, yeah, so knowing that that's not happening is good.
We like
Great.
Yeah, so yeah, no, the causeway
Much
is
less creepy.
raised from the bottom. That's why I used the word causeway, actually, because it kind of
Totally.
implies that. Not in all cases, as it turns out, but in most. In any case, yes, there's no Octoritas, which means that it's hard to see once you make darkness around you, but if it doesn't have any miraculous abilities, then its particular senses will probably be dulled by this.
And I kind of am struck by an idea. So I instruct the others to dim their glow on my count and attempt another lesser creation of darkness that's where we previously were. Like a reasonable distance from us, but still ahead of where they're trailing, and make shadow versions of ourselves, and use Mavia's tentacles to hopefully obscure my the lack of detail that darkness can create.
Sure.
Yeah, so this series of miracles goes off just fine. And by the time sunset has arrived, you can actually see the terminus of the causeway on the horizon. Or I should say, a little bit ahead of the horizon. You know that it's ended because you can actually see a little bit of gap between dry land and the horizon. So you'll have to walk a little bit into the night to get there, but you think you can do it pretty quickly. Now, I should probably ask, Leorian, have you been playing the drum to speed things up for like a whole day?
I suppose I have. I stop at this point and spend another miracle point, so I'm no more in debt than that.
Okay.
But I will at some point have to pay off a day of speed debt, as it were.
Okay.
That's going to be a hell of
Bless
a
you.
come down.
He's gonna be on slow-mo for a straight day.
That's going to be
Hopefully
so
not while
friggin'
our
funny.
lives are in immediate danger.
So, you don't make it to the terminus by sunset. You don't make it by full dark. But you make it sometime after that. And I would presume, correct me if I'm wrong, I do not mean to put actions into your character, but I would assume that, Leorian, you stop playing the drum just at least a little bit before you actually reach the terminus. You walk up to the edge of this raised portion of seafloor. It's maybe 100 feet in diameter as you approach it. It's full dark, but you're well away from any human habitation. The deep ocean is around you on all sides, and it's honestly only because of the miraculous nature of the causeway that the various swells do not inundate you as you walk for the last several hundred miles. But as you start to approach, as the details of the terminus of this causeway resolve, you can see a hunched figure in the middle and absolutely nothing else. There is no feature other than a sandy and in some places rocky bottom that has been raised to the surface. I will also go ahead and point out, just for the color commentary, that there are places on this causeway where you've been treading on coral or on stone, but for the most part, it's been sand.
This is a sensory deprivation area. Or would be.
How far away is the figure?
by the point where Leorian stops playing the drum, maybe 300 yards.
Does the figure have an
Perceptible from that distance.
auditoritas?
Mm-hmm.
Quite bright.
Familiar?
Oh, yes.
I start running.
Do the other two attempt to keep up?
Likely unsuccessfully, but yes. I tried it. My main goal is to stay in range so that the miracle I cast when I stop playing the drum will still affect her.
I'll
Okay.
take the rear guard.
And I guess
More emphasis
there you
guard.
go. And I suppose if it's not the drum anymore, we can just say the miracle affects her, even if I lose the range a little bit. But yeah, I guess I'm probably in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
I do kind of stop short of the figure once I'm confident it'll hear me and call Apatia.
So Mavia's voice rings out over the open ocean and this relatively small space of ocean floor that has been raised, calling, Apatia! The figure only responds by hunching into a tight ball from what appears to have been a listless seated position.
I keep moving closer, but a bit more furtively now.
This affords Leorian and Ramnet a little bit of time to catch up, although not completely. You move into what I'll call detail range, especially in the dark. Because, without any particular miracles, Mavia's night vision is good, but not superhuman. And you see, sure enough, there, almost in the dead center of all of this, is Apatia. Dressed as the last time Lissa saw her, in a sort of approximation of a, real world, late medieval, early modern nun's habit, but a little more fitted and with a lot of stars embroidered on it. Curled up, sort of knees flat to the ground, body hunched over her knees, hands on the back of her head. You can see her Arctoritas, bright as ever. But other than that, you can see very little about her. She doesn't appear to be actively soaked anymore, but you can tell that there is mud on all of the parts of her that are contacting the ground, and at least the residue of evaporated or drained seawater. Elsewhere, there are a couple of salt striations on her outfit.
I look to Leorian first and ask him if this place qualifies as nowhere before moving a bit closer, still almost not wanting to believe my own eyes. And finally, I ask, would you care to join me for a drink, my fair lady of sensation?
Just to be clear for myself and our listeners, this is Mavia saying these words, or have we switched back to Lissa?
Mavia, but with Lissa undertoning.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't want to... Lissa is hesitant to come to the fore given the current situation.
Sure.
My response is not verbal to the part of the query that was to me. I call upon Dusk and say wordlessly, "Look, we found her." If it were possible to simply say, "Dusk can now see through my eyes," that would be exactly what I'm doing.
Okay. Apatia, for her part, tightens in her little protective ball for about a slow count of 3, and then simultaneously relaxes and rolls over. She rolls onto her back, splayed out, just shy of spread eagle, looking up at the night sky, though only Mavia will be aware, will be close enough to see that Apatia is not looking at anything. Instead of eyes, she has empty sockets, and probably with sort of blood stains still below them, even though presumably she was underwater until about a day and a half ago.
I rush in at that point and pick her up and growl, "She will pay."
Apatia sort of curls, but not up, rather into Mavia, and murmurs almost inaudibly, "I only can hope." The muscles in her face move like she's trying to scrunch her eyes closed, but of course, that's no longer possible.
Leorian, get us out of here.
I do. Or at least I try to. I try to take us to Boar.
All right. You can feel from that earlier moment Dusk's attention on you. Your announcement that you found her gets his attention. But of course, I note that you are out of realm miracle points, so you will need to contrive to spend 2 realm miracle points to get from this point back to Boar, wherever you wish to take them from, in the style of the Rite of the Last Trump.
We're also not in perfect darkness, and I'm not sure that would work anymore.
True.
Right. Yeah, and Boar's rules are different.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect
Yeah,
darkness
I mean,
would
I
get us
certainly-
back to Fermata, which may not be ideal.
I think I'll exactly. I'll take 2 from Spirit and 1 each from Aspect and Domain to get us where we need to go.
All right. And
I will note that on my sheet.
in short order, not darkness, but indeed nothingness envelops the lot of you. And you can feel each of you make the decision in your Octoritas to let it through. Mavia, you can tell that Apatia also does so. In short order, you all, including Apatia, find yourself in that grassy highland that characterizes Boar. There's nothing particularly in evidence on the horizon, and as soon as you arrive, Apatia's body language relaxes. But she seems relatively insensate, somewhat ironically. Leorian, you're the most sort of collected upon this arrival.
Since we are on familiar territory, what everyone would hear me say would be, "You're safe here."
When you
I've begun
finish
to give the time back.
Sure.
Yeah,
Oh, then you give the time back.
I've begun to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a fate roll. Just
Oh, no.
one random D10. I don't usually do this, but I'm going to tell the listener what I rolled. On a D10, I rolled a 2.
Okay. I don't know if that's good or bad for me, to be honest.
Yes, that doesn't really help us out at this point.
Correct.
It's about 2. Leorian, you use that drum for most of a day to speed things up. To all visual, auditory, other normal sensory appearances, you freeze in place. If somebody had a time lapse of you, you would be moving at the speed of a particularly slow growing grass. So fortunately, Mavia, you are not affected by this slowdown. You're the one holding Apatia. You find yourself in the high, empty, grassy plateau of Bor. Leorian has become one of those living statue performance artists. Robnet is looking around. Apatia seems maybe not entirely insensate, but relatively worse for wear.
I am going to first call for Dosk and see if he managed to procure the souls of any of Lurenton's healers. Probably singular. Maybe plural. I don't know. And also ask Apatia for permission to, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, frisk her and make sure that Dagoom hasn't planted anything sinister on her.
All right. You ask her for permission and you get a moan in response. How do you interpret that?
Is the cadence of the moan up or down?
I will do my best to impersonate it.
That's very different from the usual moans.
It's damn good to have an expert in the house at times like these.
I may just try to disguise it as checking her over, so I won't be overly obviously invasive about it, but I do want to figure out if there's any injuries that we need to be aware of, etc.
I mean, other than the obvious with her eyes, there don't seem to be. And for what it's worth, you don't really find anything. She doesn't have pockets in her outfit.
Okay. And she would be as bright as ever in the sight. So I stop worrying about it and instead at last become Lissa and just stand there holding her, stroking her hair, waiting for Dosk.
Okay. The shadow tendrils sort of back into Mavia, and you are Lissa again. I'm going to make a little bit of a chaos roll here. If you are paying close attention, Leorian is moving, but at roughly 3% speed. And Apatia seems to be not entirely, but definitely mostly insensate. Ronald, are you getting up to anything in particular upon your arrival?
Has Lismavia already called for Dosk?
I believe so.
In that event, where within nowhere are we?
It is impossible to tell while Leorian is slowed down to the extent that he is.
I have realized what I've done to myself and started to try to apologize, so look for that in about an hour. Or a day.
And you still haven't finished your first statement, I assume, so...
He hasn't even begun to vocalize yet. He's still in the process of taking a breath to be able to speak, and it will be for a while.
Oh, Leorian.
I will...
It may not last a whole day at this rate. It seems to have compounded.
I seem to have slowed down more than we sped up, I think, but yeah.
I will...
Maybe half a day.
Just try a little bit of basic sign language. Like, start to blink your eye if you're getting this in real time.
So, Leorian, you are not getting this in real time. So,
okay.
There is no immediate response.
Whenever I hear it, I start blinking, so I'm sure that'll be delightfully unsettling when it happens.
In like an hour and a half.
Try to remember that that's in the pipe. We'll see.
Okay. We're really doing some input queuing here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely running a 2022 program on Intel Pentium 2 processor.
Yeah, it's like when all MMOs had to assume you might have dial-up. So.
Right. So there's no immediate response from Leorian. And Lismavia has called out to Dosk, but he's not in evidence yet, although it hasn't been that long. So if there's anything in particular you'd like to do other than stand around waiting for him, now's a good time.
Not so much.
You can watch me grow.
Let's just give him
Awkward.
water, a little bit of sunshine. Leorian's gonna be fine.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe mist him once a day, depending on his humidity preferences.
Exactly.
What are his humidity preferences?
I mean, he's from a coastal town, so probably on the more humid side.
He's
I
gonna
would
be
say-
like a Calathea, a diva plant.
I was going to say that his coastal town is at the extremity of a temperate zone, the colder extremity of a temperate zone. So I'm going to say his humidity preferences are occasional thick fog.
There you go. Recording this from New England, so that resonates. Yeah.
Sorry,
I'm of no help through nothing but fault of my own, and also the whims of the dice.
that too.
Try to give Apatia furious joy that will result in a weird photo negative of Mavia briefly being superimposed over Lissa.
You can attempt it. I'm going to impose a roll of, let's say, sense plus empathy with a minimum height. So you're going to do 2 plus master die.
Okay. I'm continuing my streak of just really bad rolls, so that's going to be 2 2s.
Okay. You scrabble at Apatia's Octoritas.
Mm-hmm.
She's too insensate to let you through, unfortunately.
I tried.
Yeah. So there's a sort of lull of a few minutes, and then you sort of feel the air around you rushing into a vacuum. And then with a Doska's there. He doesn't look like the human version. He looks sort of like the photo negative silhouette of the human version of Dosk. Leorian, it's entirely likely that you can perceive this in real time, but not react to it in real time. I guess what 1:33 1/3 time.
Does this mean he's gotten my inquiry? Or does Dosk being a full god take priority in terms of timing?
I'm going to say that it's going to be a moment, probably in the middle of this conversation, that Leorian gets your inquiry. So, Dosk appears and looks around relatively furtively, and then says, "Oh, welcome. How is she?"
She's not good. She's barely conscious. Nyx took her eyes.
Oh. Well,
we need help. Are there healers? Like you mentioned that you were able to save Lurenton. I know there were some capable hands in town.
Dosk's posture sort of slumps and says, "Yeah, they're here, but I don't think they'll be able to do anything for..."
Can you in nothing for trauma?
Oh, well,
Probably
you
want to
know,
ask her first, but...
I can try. Why don't we go somewhere a little more comfortable first? And Dosk's form walks over to where Leorian is very slowly changing positions.
Replant me.
He's root pound. Help.
Puts an
That's actually
arm
the name of the comic
around.
that Den has started drawing.
Aw.
Huh.
Das puts an arm around Leorian's, very glacially moving form and doesn't do anything in particular, but sort of whoop. You're all in the heart of the chancel. It's a little more defined this time than it was in the past. It's less of like a squiggle vision motion sketch and more of the sort of thing you would get from like a Twitter artist posting a sketch layer. And he lays Apatia out on the bar of this sketchy nightcap and then more or less forcibly places Leorian in a chair at a table. Leorian, this is wild for you because the change of location and the change of position is more than instantaneous. It almost projects backward in time.
I have never stopped to think about what it would feel like to be like a potted plant in a car. But I'm currently thinking about it.
You're welcome.
I didn't expect to get that out of tonight, but I'm glad I did. Yeah. Okay. I start to give a thumbs up when I realize what's happening, which is presumably quite a while from now.
It's a little bit, yeah.
And yet longer before the thumbs up happens.
Indeed.
So, Das repositions himself behind the bar of this sketched-in nightcap for the two guests who are perceiving events actively in real time and says, I'm glad you managed to retrieve her. Anything I should be updated on?
We did a few things.
Yeah? Like what?
Double eclipse. The obsidian god symbol in each of the stars. Raised a whole bunch of ground from the floor of the ocean to the surface of the ocean. Redirected some tidal waves onto Sirtha.
Some of that with your help.
Yeah, thank you for your assistance.
Yeah, no, I definitely gave power as requested, but oh my me, you all have been quite diligent, quite busy.
Well, I found out where Apatia was, and the fact that she was being punished by Nyx at the bottom of the ocean. And Nyx and Dagum have apparently formed an alliance, which we're going to shatter.
Well,
shortly.
I suspect, have already begun to undermine it, given that Apatia's punishments were apparently one of the terms of that alliance.
I see.
Since Apatia is no longer being punished, well, Dagun may no longer be upholding its end of the bargain.
Right.
Is
that's a good point.
there?
Out of character as Dask, I believe that both Rymulus and Philia have referred to Dagum as him before.
Okay.
For his part, Dask, or, what you can see of him, sort of, shakes his head and says, well, I'm certainly glad you managed to get Apatia out of the Deep's clutches. I hope that the retribution is not too severe, and, well, I don't really know how to stay out of the line of fire currently, but that's part of why I made the chancel, so I could be able to put myself in the line of fire without risking my,
everything.
immortal existence. Yeah, so let me see what I can do for Apatia. You two feel free to have a drink, and Dusk's gaze drifts to Leorian, and it's like, I guess I can help him out at least a little bit. It might not be super comfortable for him. Let me see. Leorian?
My silence up till now has been perfectly in character, by the way.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
This is about how it sounds in the room.
Approximately, experientially at least, 2 minutes have passed for you.
Also, congratulations on
since
being an end.
Quite.
Why, thank you.
About 2 minutes.
Honestly, lifelong dream. Please continue.
About 2 minutes have passed for you since you stopped playing the drum back on the causeway. Sensory inputs have been extremely hard to parse. But at a certain point, Dosk turns his attention to you, and you feel a certain amount of miraculous energy flow into you. I would love it if you could give me a roll of, let's say, you know what? Just give me sense. 4 dice.
Okay, just pure sense.
Just pure sense.
Okay. That is a pair of 7s.
Not bad. You managed to weather the sudden rubber banding of your consciousness. If you've ever seen a television show or YouTube video or whatever, do like the sort of cassette tape fast forward thing with the audio, going. That's more or less what you get. You can't make heads or tails of any of it, but when it finishes, you are seated in a chair at a table in the heart of Bor. And both of your comrades, as well as Dosk and the woman that you rescued from the bottom of the ocean, are all there in various places and states. And your mind reels for an interval, but you are back in the present, and you understand that part of the way that has happened is that Dosk has essentially consumed some of his available power to help you out here.
I say in rapid succession, "You're safe here," and then something to Romnet, and then I give a thumbs up, and then I look at Dosk, and then I say, "Thank you," and then I slump over in my chair.
Very rapidly.
Pops the queue in its entirety.
Than humanly possible, Dosk places a glass of a brownish liquor in front of you.
I take it thankfully, and I drink it slowly.
Not a bad idea.
But probably not slowly by the standard of the plant I once was.
Perfectly fair. Dosk, for his part, having accomplished this, moves over toward Apatia and starts apparently inspecting her, probably just trying to see what he can do about it. Any particular actions from our 3 Nobilis?
I'll ask if
I'll take
Dosk has any updates on things on his end.
Dosk sort of, casually shakes his head and says, I mean, not really. It's, I was aware of broad strokes of what you all are getting up to. Tohil and Fewa were still here when that all started, though they've since departed. I'm glad you were able to retrieve Apatia. I'm curious as to what that may accomplish versus the Deep or versus Nyx. I suppose we'll have to see. I'm going to try to get her sort of more stabilized first. She sort of still seems delirious and doesn't seem ideal for finding out exactly what went on in all this,
No. And we're going to need a bit more detail if I'm to hold an audience with the Nyx and give her exactly what she wants.
Yeah, do you feel like you know what Nyx wants? Because I never did figure that out as a mortal, and now it's all the more locked off to me. What does Nyx want?
to be the only god. And the gods would. I felt all of the despair that comes with that.
Right.
I want to give it back.
Well, yeah, it sounds like we'll need a patient for that. So, I guess give me a second. And Dosk, you can't really see his eyelids in his current form, but you nevertheless get the sense that he closes his eyes and focuses on Apatia. So, in order to see what the results of Dosk's attentions on Apatia are going to be, I'm going to roll this 10-sided die.
There's been so much chaos rolling this session.
It's true. Though this one, I will point out, was a 10.
Thank heavens. I was willing it to be a 10 over here.
On the assumption that 10s are always good, that.
Yes.
So, Leorian catching up with the normal flow of time. Lissa and Rumnet looking on rather more mundanely. Dosk, or the shape that represents Dosk in this space, leans over Apatia's sort of listless form and starts sort of gesturing very vaguely a foot or so away from her. And you can actually, even without the sight actively engaged, sort of detect in Dosk's movements that there is some interaction with Arctoritas going on. But after a small interval, less than a minute, you see that Dosk is able to move through Apatia's Arctoritas. And, well, he doesn't seem able to restore her eyes exactly, but he's able to give her a familiar substitute. This is not exactly the same as Romnet's Smoking Void Skull, not least of which because it doesn't encompass her hair. But there is a sort of sense of a hazy unreality in the vicinity of her eyes that instead of streaming upwards like smoke, sort of trails like an afterimage from her eyes, even as her head tosses back and forth in the throes of whatever Dosk might be doing to her. And instead of simple smoky darkness, it is a sort of afterimage of a night sky with very bright stars. This may be a little bit of a stretch, but if anybody has seen the anime adaptation of the Count of Monte Cristo called Gankutsuo, there is this effect that they use for fabrics in that show where they're sort of like cutouts of the world with patterns moving behind them. That is sort of the effect that Apatia's eyes take on, that when her head moves, her eyes and the starry pattern within them do not move with her head, but rather her eye sockets pan across a seemingly pre-existing panorama of a sort of deep purpley blue night sky with bright stars in it.
Morpheus eyes.
I will take your word for it.
Can I supplement that, like sensing that miracle? Can I supplement that with any darkness to make the stars come in brighter contrast? Or
tell you what I'll do. Oh, even
roll.
better than another chaos roll, I currently have in my hands
a coin,
an iron coin with it doesn't show up on the camera, a memento mori on one side and memento vivere on the other side.
That paints a picture.
So I am going to flip that on my mouse pad here, and we'll see
vivere.
how successful that is.
L'chaim.
The sound lets you know that my aim for the mouse pad was bad, but it came up memento mori. So that's all you as a player will know.
Great. Thank you for that.
Adam
You're welcome.
does his best.
I love this coin. It's not technically mine. It's Joanne's, but I love it dearly. So, Dosk straightens from his hunch over Apatia's form and turns to the rest of you and says, well, she's more or less sleeping soundly for the moment, and I'm sure she'll awaken soon, but I want to leave her to her rest currently.
Could we find something more suited for her than a bar?
Oh, yes, almost certainly. And you can't see Dosk's eyes or eyelids, but you nevertheless get the sense of him closing his eyes, and the scene around you sort of smudges and then redefines itself into one of the rooms above the nightcap and fermata. And before you can really orient yourself, Dosk is placing Apatia into the bed. Just very almost casually sliding her under the covers of the made bed and resting her head on the two pillows in the center. He straightens and says, I imagine that's about the best I can do for her here. It's the safest I can keep her anyway.
Well, thank you.
No, of course. She's my friend too. And he seems to look kind of lingeringly at Apatia laying on the bed.
So there's no way we could recruit her, take her away from... I mean, if Nyx yet lives, there's no way we could...
Not until she's awake.
Well, sure, of course. No, I didn't mean without asking her. I just meant, can we offer?
I suspect she may
something...
entertain it based on what she said to me.
Dosk sort of shrugs one shoulder and says, I mean, anything's possible, I suppose, but...
That's the spirit.
It'll depend a lot on what Nyx has done to her, what hold Dagum has on her, what her own inclinations are. I guess we won't know any of it until she wakes. Unsatisfying an answer as that may be.
It is amusing to me, and I know this may frustrate you to say, Adam, how you are sliding toward the Apatia voice.
Yeah.
I'm going to pretend not to know what you are talking about.
I choose to believe that Dosk is getting a contact high of ambient Apatia.
Yeah. I mean, her blood is addictive, so...
And I mean, the truth is that I can only mirror the cadence and delivery that Drew had for Dosk by raising my pitch in order to be a little breathier. A professional voice actor, I am not.
I'm a tenor. There's little I can do about it.
I mean, I guess I could just have Dusk sound like this from now on, but that doesn't seem like a good solution.
It wouldn't
That's
solve
not.
the problem. No.
I'm okay without that.
Indeed not. So, Apatia has been settled on this sketch of a bed, and Lissa and Ramnet and Leorian and Dosk are all in the room there with her, though the connection between it and the common room you just left is implied at best.
Well, I intend to stay with her until she wakes. It's the least I can do since I lost sight of her. I'm the one that lost her.
Mm-hmm. Dusk sort of nods and says, I mean, I can stay. I just, I don't know how much good it will do. If you'd like the company, I can keep my physical presence here, but, Up to you, I suppose.
I'll always welcome your company, Dosk.
You're almost too big-hearted for your own good, but I appreciate it. And he has a seat. I'll say there's what are they called? A settee at the foot of the bed here. He has a seat on that.
Oh, I'm happy to stay.
Yeah, I'll take a
course.
seat on the settee as well.
All right. Everybody finds a place to sit and settles in to wait. It's honestly not that long considering. It's less than an hour before Apatia wakes. Is there anything in particular conversation-wise or action-wise that's taking place there?
At some point, I assured Dosk that I've learned my lesson about incurring debts I can't pay.
Dusk shrugs one shoulder and says, I'm just glad you were, here where I could help you get through it quickly. But, we live and we learn, and I'm glad you're learning while you live.
That's the plan. I mean, hey, if I have figured out how not to incur debts I can't pay, that'll be a first among musicians.
That snort is in character for Dusk.
I sit in what can only be described as furiously nervous silence.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a silence after a time, I venture, if this is not an indelicate question, could you tell me something about Apatia? She's loomed large in my imagination in the time we've known each other, but I feel I know little and less about her, even so.
Well, she first appeared to us by descending from the heavens. Well, Dosk and I. Dosk, feel free to chime in at any point in time. And she oversees sensation, and she's helped us. Unfortunately, in defiance of Nyx, and I guess you could see the consequences of that now.
And it probably should be said she does drink blood.
That too.
That's noted and notable. But she sounds, I mean, I can tell she's important to you. And I mean, so she's important to me by extension, and I hope to be important to her, here for her.
Thank you, Leorian. I appreciate all your help back there. I know it almost cost you a lot. I'm not sure why you were frozen.
Paying back.
Well, I mean, I guess I've never taken that much, so I've never. Well, the check came due, I guess. Lesson learned.
Yeah, that seemed unpleasant. I hope it wasn't as unpleasant as it looked.
It was. Have you ever thought about just being a tree? It's not all bad.
Dusk jumps in at that and says, I'm just glad I could, help pay it off for you. Glad you came back here. And hopefully, Apatia will wake up soon and we can hash this all out.
Hopefully I don't drum for a full day ever again. I mean, that was, that's unusual. I never did that. Well, I did that once when I was alive. That's a story for another day. Never mind.
We'll try to do our best to make sure you don't have to.
That.
After another...
Look, if we have friends that need rescuing, I'll drum for however long I need to, and I'll be whatever kind of tree I have to be afterward.
If you got a choice, what would you pick to be?
I think about this for a terribly long time.
In fact, before you come up with your answer, Apatia wakes. Apatia wakes with an alarming gasp and sits bolt upright. And in the instant following that, everyone's Octoritas, save perhaps Dusk's, you guys can't tell immediately, is penetrated. All at once, all three of you are experiencing what it is like to drown forever but not die. To experience absolutely every sense of that experience. Sight, sound, hearing, taste, touch, smell. For what I can describe as an eternal moment.
I scream, gurgle, I'm sorry the entire time.
Fair enough. Actually, you know,
That might, since I have not done any miracles, would that have targeted me?
it is a proximity thing.
Okay.
And honestly, Lissa, with you scream gurgling, I'm sorry, you hear an echo of it every time you say it in Apatia's voice, but as a whisper. Let me see.
On a scale of 1 to the despair of a lonely god,
Mm-hmm.
where is it?
Three-quarters of the way there.
Okay. I also try to get out when I hear the whisper back. You're safe
Mhm.
now. We're here. You're safe.
Roll me sense plus empathy, 2 plus a master die. Try to get 5s or higher.
I'm gonna change out to these two I have. Come on. Oh, 2 9s.
2 9s.
I had to pivot it upside down. I guess I would have been fine either way, but 2 9s.
Sure. Painfully slowly, though for all you know, it only takes moments. The feeling recedes. I should make it clear, the feeling only recedes for Lissa. Lissa, as you become aware of your surroundings again, you don't see Dusk. In fact, you don't see the sketch of one of the rooms at the nightcap that you saw before. Instead, you see something more approximating a room at the inn you stayed in the night you met Apatia in Diamacor. It's less sketchy, more soft focus, more Vaseline on the lens. Blink your eyes a couple of times to try to clear your vision, but it doesn't work. Apatia, her eyes missing and bloody once again, is sitting up in the bed, her fists clenched in the covers, looking around rapidly, only occasionally lighting her eyes on you. And before you can really articulate anything in particular, she emits a brief shriek, followed by, "No! No, you weren't supposed to come. She's going to..." And then Apatia is gone. As though she wasn't there. The bed is made. Ramnet, Leorian, you don't
Feels so good.
perceive anything in particular through your mortal senses, but you have this sensation of like a very drawn out record scratch through your divine senses. It sort of fuzzes everything else. I would love a sense plus empathy from all of our player characters. Lissa, I know I just made you do this one, but I need you to do another one.
I gotcha. 3 5. Well, yeah, can I do 3 5s if I had rolled 2 5s miraculously out of 2 dice and then set my master die to 5?
Absolutely, yeah. 3
Yeah, that's how it do.
That's how it do.
Okay. I was not expecting that. Thank you.
4 10s on 8 dice.
Wow.
4
Okay.
10s.
All right. Empathy double kill. Okay, that's 6 dice for me for the record.
Nice.
And remarkably no matches.
Oh no.
Well, that rock-
Oh no, sorry. I'm wrong. That is 2 ones.
Yay!
There
The
are-
Well,
minimum
that-
there are 2
successful
ones in there.
match.
I get to use this soundbite. Multi-kill. Boy, that goes back to 1999. In any case, so all three of you experience this outpouring of absolutely excruciating synesthesia. All of your senses, the 5 main ones and the ones we don't think about that much. Things like your sense of balance, proprioception, hell, for that matter, your sense of self, have coarse sandpaper, figuratively, grating on them. But you do manage, all of you, given your matches, to hold it together. Leorian, you are by far the least successful in this. You don't dissolve into the sensation, but you are under spiritual siege, so we say.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Where is this on the scale of aforementioned mono god despair?
It's hard to place on the continuum. It's more like if you've ever been light sensitive as part of a hangover, imagine that affecting all 5 of your main senses, plus the other ones that we don't think about that much, plus the spiritual ones that mortals don't have, plus a little bit of zhuzh on the overall sort of impetus behind it. It's hard to perceive anything successfully, though again, all 3 of you do manage to hold it together just barely.
Is this after effects of Apatia, or is this Nyx?
Nyx.
Ramna, you in particular cannot tell.
Fair.
Lissa, you will recognize the presence of Nyx, and moreover, you will be able, given your role, to be able to interpret this as sort of the Nyx equivalent of somebody alternating left and right jabs to the chin.
All the same, through gritted teeth, I say, "Hello, Nyx. I've felt worse."
Okay, here's
'Cause I
what
had
I
to.
I would like
here's what I need from you, Lissa.
Uh-huh.
Your misplaced confidence is finally going to come into play.
Yeah. It's
Hell
about
yeah.
time. It's taken the entire...
42 episodes, here we are. I need you to roll, in this case, not command, but rather charm plus intimidate. That's going to be 4 dice, and your misplaced confidence means that the difficulty on that is 3. So you have to roll pair of 3s or better.
while we're doing that, Adam.
Pair of 5s.
Nice.
Most excellent. And what was that, Des?
I would like to murder these sensations.
Interesting. Very interesting. So is this a lesser creation?
Yes, for the moment.
Okay. For domain, lesser creations are free to you with no penetration. Are you going to spend any miracle points on adding penetration?
No, I think this is just an opening. Let's see how this do.
Okay. In that case, your miracle goes off, but you feel it slide off of Nyx.
Fair. I would like to create a lesser sacrifice of all of my sensations for the next 3 minutes.
Interesting. Now,
To blow that absence of sensation, particularly since I am in a nothing, back at Nyx.
Okay. The one question I have here.
I will sacrifice them to Dusk.
Okay. That was going to be my question. To whom or what are you sacrificing? So a lesser creation of sacrifice is going to be 2 domain miracle points.
Yep.
Which brings you down to 3 domain miracle points. Okay. Let's see. Let me figure out how this goes in terms of timing and everything. Okay. Lissa, your intimidate goes off first. You say, I felt worse. And you feel Nyx redouble her efforts, but despite the fact that she's putting more energy into it, you feel less of her, for lack of a better phrase, misery synesthesia than you did before.
Miserythesia.
Miserysia.
Sinistery?
Honestly, my impulse is to call it threnathesia, like threnody with synesthesia. But
yep.
That is vague at best. Rumnet, you are sort of in the temporal process of executing your particular maneuver. Leorian, you are at the mercy of Nyx. Now, listeners, you and Drew are both very fortunate that I have not opted to port a third system into this, specifically my favorite sanity system, which is Unknown Armies.
Yeah, no, this would be... I've been thinking about how many different flavors of checks the last 5 minutes would have been.
Quite. It's an amazingly portable sanity system, but I have elected not to try to complicate our 2-system campaign with it.
We've been doing a pretty good job going crazy in a perfectly normal narrative way. So
you know what? You're right.
I think that's going to continue unabated.
So suffice it to say, Leorian, you are occupied keeping your sense of self intact.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair.
So, Rumnet, you managed to fight your way to the surface of this sensory barrage. You don't feel exactly that you managed to turn the tables, but that you managed to reach something only slightly more favorable than a stalemate with Nyx's onslaught. Lissa.
And that's the effect of my miracle, or?
Yes, for now.
Okay, cool.
Lissa, you are sure that Nyx receives your message, though nothing immediately changes. After a small interval, though, you can detect Apatia in the sea of sensation again. Now, my question for you is, how many miracle points from various categories, all being 1-to-1, are you willing to spend to use Apatia as a conduit to communicate a feeling to Nyx?
This would be the miracle that I was planning on doing. So it has to be the miracle points.
How many miracle points?
They are 1-to-1. They can come from any category. How many are you willing to spend to ensure that your communique as it were, transmits through Apatia to Nyx.
So I think this is a good time for me to spend 10. I'm gonna spend 4 from Aspect. I'm gonna spend my 4 from Spirit.
Lissa, may I make of this a murder?
Oh, sure. You have my consent for this. If I feel you messing around with Octoritas's, I will definitely put it in.
Yep.
Are you going to be contributing?
Oh, fuck yes.
So I will refrain from spending my last 2 domain miracle points if you want to spot me what remains to make this more powerful. What can you...
Adam, is this 1-to-1 or 2-to-1? For things beyond realm, or beyond domain?
I will say, actually, at a remove from Lissa, who is doing the primary miracle, you will spend 2-to-1 from any category to add 2 to add 1 to Lissa's overall.
And just to confirm, I cannot contribute because I am busy staying intact as a being.
Correct.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Not your fault. Blame the dice.
So currently we have 8 miracle points from Lissa.
Yeah. I'm dropping in 7 more, that is to say 14 of mine.
So, yeah, that'll bring Lissa's expenditure to 15 overall. Okay.
I am cratering everything but domain.
Smart.
Fair enough.
I'm leaving a little bit of a reserve in here, but enough to truly do it. Am I able to talk as I'm doing this?
I'm going to say that any remarks have to wait until after the miracle fires.
Okay.
So I've got my red D10 here. This is I'm going to roll it. It's going to reflect the number of miracle points at 2-to-1 that Apatia can put into this miracle. So we're at 15 currently. Yes.
And can we, through my sacrifice of sense, request some Dusk assistance here?
You can request it.
Sure.
We don't know where Dusk is.
You will not know exactly what effect it has.
I am putting vibes out into the world. Specifically by getting rid of all vibes I am receiving.
All right. So currently Lissa's miracle here has 15 points. Apatia will add 3. And I'm going to roll an undisclosed roll for Dusk.
Does anybody have a
We still have some spares, I'm sure.
You do. I don't know who's carrying them, though. Who would be the Nettlemeister?
Are you pointing at me?
Yeah. I realize the camera's here, and no one can actually see where anybody is on my screen, but dear listeners, I was indeed pointing at Rob.
If I have enough bodily control, I will ready one.
You know what? I'm going to make that a roll as well. Just for fun. Because I am
capricious,
whimsical, and mean like that. Body plus coordination, Lissa. That's going to be 5 dice.
I was looking at all of my, is it going to be endurance? Is it going to be athletics? Sadly, no matches. I got a 6 and a 9, though.
Nice.
Do you have...
I can do my Lady Luck, though.
You can.
Alternatively, do you have any aspect remaining?
Yes, I do. I can also... I have 2 left, so I can spend an aspect.
If you would like to spend an aspect to Lady Luck and get essentially your maximum roll on 5 dice.
Okay. I'll do both.
All right.
So let me spend an aspect and roll 5.
Mm-hmm.
I rolled the exact same
No.
numbers.
By spending the aspect.
All 5, as I did last time. A 69 again. The other 3 were 270.
As you spend an aspect miracle, you do guarantee a success.
That's good. I'm just marveling over the statistics of me doing the same roll twice on 5 dice.
Astronomically unlikely. Yeah.
We're all thermodynamic miracles.
That said, spending a miracle point on it does guarantee you a success, and a fairly good one at that. So, let me describe the overall procedure here. All of this has happened in a matter of moments. But at the end of the day, so to speak, Lissa, you managed to channel at least a sense of what that feeling you got from delving into the previous Overgod's past was like. And you managed to channel it through Apatia. And you manage for you and Romnet and Leorian, for that matter, to stay conscious throughout. Moreover, you get a little bit of energy, not a ton, but a little bit from Dosk during the process. He doesn't remanifest, but you feel it flow in. You know Dosk well enough to identify his particular flavor of miraculous energy. This is enough to penetrate Nyx's Auctoritas. And Lissa, this is going to be pretty unique to you in the moment, though of course you can convey it verbally to anyone else when you have a moment. You perceive sort of a panorama through time. You think this is maybe a quirk of Dosk's portfolio. Apatia was a trap, and it has kind of worked in that everyone here has suffered psychological damage of a sort, but also spent a lot of miracle points. However, it has not worked precisely as intended, because you were able to use Apatia as a conduit to communicate to Nyx what her fate would be as the sole Overgod. At least according to your insight into the previous Overgod in the Godswoods. For a moment, an eternal moment, it only lasts maybe a second, but it feels like forever. There is perfect stasis. A crystalline moment in which everyone is at the extremity of their abilities. And the sensory overload, where all of your senses are overwhelmed by Nyx's input. Only it doesn't actually last forever. It shatters. And you feel Nyx withdraw. You don't know what Nyx's thoughts or feelings are beyond that. But all three of you, in the same moment, return to your senses in your bodies. And you look at Apatia.
Was I able to crush the nettle?
We'll get there.
Okay.
You're able to regard Apatia, who has collapsed, spread-eagled, partially under and partially over the covers of the bed, sketchy as it may be in its presentation. Her eyelids are closed. You don't see the shape of an eyeball underneath it, but the blood on her face is gone. After about one beat of taking in this tableau, everybody's standing tensely, a little bit sweaty in this room. Apatia suddenly seeming serenely asleep. Mott's Nobilis feel a tiny amount of power flow into them. You can put 2 miracle points wherever you desire. The nettle is crushed in Lyssa's hand, and Apatia's sleeping face has a very, very faint smile on it. There is half a second, and then you hear Leorian thump bonelessly to the ground behind the three of you. Dusk is still not in evidence, but it seems that the worst of the danger has passed.
I assume I actually don't experience any of this, given the sacrifice of sensations?
Your experience is that you come back to yourself about the time that Leorian collapses, and you sort of get a fast motion Keystone Cops style recap of what you missed.
All right.
It's not as intense as if you were experiencing it in the moment, but you kind of view it from almost an out-of-body experience type of way.
Blunting the amount of failed notches I might acquire.
Leorian, you basically don't feel or sense in any way any of the aftermath there. You just sort of come to on the floor a moment later.
I definitely am making some undignified kind of noises, taking a moment to realize I am not in fact drowning, and in fact never was in a certain literal sense. But yeah, I take a moment to come back to myself.
I will help Leorian up, seeing that he's the only one that has gone
Not
ragdoll on us. Having also, I know Romnet's mostly okay because I felt some miraculous energy. So, a lot of miraculous energy, so much. Bigly miraculous. That was not meant to be a slight.
Oh no, I know.
Most miraculous. Yeah, I know as Lissa comes to me, I say, I was no use there at all.
You're good. It's a lot. I'm so sorry.
It means
I'm so sorry.
likely that we may be relying on you for a bit, as that, I suspect, drained a lot of both of our power. And
Of course,
possibly the intent.
I'm here. Oh, of course. But she's here. I mean that. Where's Dusk?
Nowhere to be seen.
I think for Nyx to have reached us here, she might have gotten through his Octoritas. Is there a way that you can check in on him?
Is there?
Well, I guess that is an open question.
For a second, I thought you were going to say, well, I guess that's where we end this episode.
Not quite. I was going to say, how many miracle points are you willing to spend to try?
Oh boy, since I am the one with the miracle points at the moment,
have a total of 7.
I've got more than that. So I've got 5 in spirit, 3 in domain, 3 in aspect. That's where I'm currently at.
11 total for our listeners.
Yeah. The difference between having and not having a god on our side seems significant.
Mm-hmm.
In what's to come. Which kind of points would I be spending to call out to him?
Any and all, 1-to-1.
Okay. Let's say I'm going to spend 6.
Okay. Leorian, you call out to Dusk, and you experience something fascinating. This chancel is Dusk's body now. And what you perceive is that Dusk has been dispersed across the chancel. given time, he would have been able to sort of reconcentrate his essence, as it were. But you spending these miracle points have allowed him to do so much faster. And all at once, that sketchy silhouette of Dusk manifests in this room with you.
Thank Dusk.
Dusk, sketchy as he is, gives the sketch of a formal bow and straightens and says, "Well, that was unpleasant, and I hope never to do it again. But thank you for managing in my absence." And he walks over to the bed where Apatia lays just shy of Spread Eagle, seemingly insensate. He reaches out 2 fingers to touch her forehead, and after a moment, she gasps and sits up.
I flinch without realizing it.
Her arms are sort of supporting her on the bed, and she seems, with her empty eye sockets, to be looking at nothing. And yet her head snaps unerringly to where Lyssa stands. And she says, "I'm so sorry. Please, please, take me away from her." And that is where we will end our session. So, that concludes
To
the session
clarify,
of Dice
take me away
Punks.
from Nyx or the room with Lyssa in it?
I have nothing to add here.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I think we've all come to the entirely appropriate conclusion that Mother Nyx is abusive.
Yes, for sure.
Oh yeah.
What gave it away?
If I were a betting man, and I am, I would say that first to next. But I guess we'll see for sure next time.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. I hope both our players and listeners enjoyed it as much as I did, and I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I hope you'll all enjoy. I hope you'll all join us next time. If you're hearing us now, then you probably know where to listen to this, but we can be found anywhere, almost any place that one can listen to podcasts, as well as on the wider web at dicepunks.com and on Twitter as @dicepunks. But with that, I think we're ready to say farewell. So say goodbye to the kind folks at home, players.
Thanks for listening, and do try to take care of your friends. And you know you have a true friend if they'll take care of you when you're a houseplant.
Thanks for listening, everyone. I don't have anything quippy to say after the houseplant thing because now I'm just imagining what type of plant everyone is in this group.
Thanks for listening, folks. And damn it, now I'm thinking of what kind of plant I would be.
Well, I can break the cycle. As the poet once said, yeah, they're friends. It's like a sport, though. Stab your backs, stab me more, friend. And free. Can someone set me free? Thank you for tuning in, dear listeners, and stick around through the admin stuff for Leorian's Litany. The songs in this episode, Theme of the Dice Punks in its acoustic version, were written and recorded by the Viscount Tempo in his element, Drew. Cover art is by Joanne, who has appeared on the podcast now and again. Check out her work around the internet where she goes by Anything Sows. Site design and graphics for dicepunks.com are by Robin, the player behind Lyssa and Mavia, the Nobilis of Darkness, Fury, and the Forge. Rain and the one-roll engine it runs on were created by Greg Stolze, whose work can be found in a lot of places, but I'll point you toward gregstolze.com. Nobilis was created by Jenna Caterin Moran and can be found alongside much of her other work, both in and outside of tabletop roleplaying, at afarandsunlessland.wordpress.com. Links to both systems and authors can be found on the Punk Grimoire section of our website, dicepunks.com. Thanks so much for listening. If you liked what you heard, that's reward enough on its own, but if you're so inclined, you can help us out by rating us and reviewing us wherever you listen to us, telling your friends who you think would like us to give us a listen, and even by heading over to our Patreon at patreon.com/dicepunks. We have fun rewards available to backers, including a patron-only Discord and access to the Dice Peaks After Show for episodes 1 and following. Regardless, we hope you'll tune in again, and until then, remember, subtlety is for cowards.
How would a grass play the lute? How would a tree sing an aria? What song would a mountain write? And how would the sky sing it? I've had occasion to think about this kind of thing, and the best I've come up with is they wouldn't. Some things humans really did invent. Some things are ours, uniquely, wholly. We really should take good care of such things.